Republican State Representative Matt Shaheen of Plano, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So first, let me just ask you your thoughts about the protests that we have seen at UT Austin and UT Dallas, in which the campus administration has called in police, law enforcement officers, state troopers,
Mhm.
and they have dismantled encampments and arrested some of the students and others who are participating. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, look, we have a handful of students that, quite frankly, are acting like juveniles. Let's remember the state of Israel was attacked. Over 1,000 Israelis were brutally murdered, including women and children, in horrific ways. And so, look, you have just some liberal elite students that, quite frankly, they hate America, they hate Israel, and so our schools are treating this perfectly fine, right? I've talked to officials both from University of Texas Austin and Dallas, and what they've told me is they've communicated to students, look, if you want to protest, just do it peacefully, no tents, no barricades, no violence, and if you don't comply, then law enforcement will take action, and that's what you're seeing.
Just to be clear, you support the students holding protests, speaking out against Israel in that case, or for the Palestinian for the Palestinian cause. You're okay with that?
You can say anything, you can hold any viewpoint that you want in America. That's your freedom. You can express that. That's your freedom. As bizarre as this stuff is, I mean, let's remember these students, when they talk about Palestine and supporting Palestine, they're talking about supporting terrorists, right? Israel, again, was attacked by a terrorist organization named Hamas, which is connected to Palestine. So let's be clear that this is what this is about. But as heinous as that is, as heinous as their belief is, yes, they have the right to express those interests. They don't have to agree with Matt Shaheen or Governor Abbott or anybody else. They're free to do that, but they can't do it in a violent way, and they can't disrupt our campuses, which is what they're doing.
And when you say the disruption, you're talking about the encampments, the tents, etc.
I'm talking about that. I'm talking about physical abuse. I'm talking about threatening students, including Jewish students, and targeting them. Look, again, I've talked to officials both from UT Austin, UT Dallas. This is happening, and that's why you're seeing these arrests. So nobody's being arrested because they're expressing their free speech. They're free to do that. But what they're doing is they're violating other laws and other policies within the universities. And the universities in the state of Texas have the full right to do that. They need to run those schools where they're safe and these students can get an education.
I spoke with Democratic State Representative Ana Maria Ramos of Dallas,
Mhm.
who thought that the encampments should be allowed. She felt as if the universities acted inappropriately, going against free speech. And she said that Republicans approved this Senate Bill 18 back in 2019 so that white nationalists could be allowed on campus. What do you say to that?
Well, that's silly, obviously. But look, again, we are going to do everything we can to protect freedom of speech, including our campuses. We don't want free speech to be suppressed on our campuses, which was some issues that we were having in the past. That's why that piece of legislation was passed. But look, these barricades, those tents, they're clearly disrupting the operations. I mean, of our campuses, when I was talking to the official from the University of Texas at Austin, they have graduation coming up. You can't have encampments and barricades and all those types of things. So look, clearly anybody that's watching what's going on, it's very clear that these students are going beyond peaceful protests. They're actually disrupting, they're breaking the law, and the law enforcement is well within their right to make these arrests, and I'm glad they did.
And you brought it up a little bit before, but what do you say to Jewish students who feel as if they are not safe on campus during these protests? And does the state have an obligation to protect Jewish students?
Our campuses definitely do, and so and our state has an obligation to make sure everybody's state is safe. And so, yeah, I want to ensure our Jewish community. I've reached out to the rabbis and the synagogues in my district to assure them that I've talked to officials from all the Texas, most of our Texas universities, and they're doing everything they can to ensure that our Jewish students are safe, that they can, study and go to class in an environment that is safe and non-hostile. It's unfortunate. Again, you just have these liberal elites that they hate America, they hate Israel, and they're acting out in an unlawful manner, and they're going to pay the consequences.
I also wanted to ask you about the state's lawsuit against the Biden administration in an attempt to block the administration's new rules as it relates to providing more protections for LGBTQ students.
Yeah.
What's your reaction to that?
It's more liberal nonsense. I mean, look, in the 1940s, men lied about their age to go to war and defend our nation. And now we have liberals pretending to be female so they can win trophies. I mean, this is just obnoxious, silly stuff. So, look, Title IX was designed to protect women from discrimination. And you have this anti women wing of the liberal Democrat Party that want to force women to compete against men. And we're not going to tolerate that in the state of Texas. And quite frankly, I appreciate Governor Abbott. He's made it clear that Texas won't follow this farce from the Biden administration. He sent a letter to President Biden informing him that Title IX was an act of Congress. Congress wrote that piece of legislation as part of the Civil Rights Act. And the president doesn't have the authority to rewrite it and force schools to treat boys as girls.
Now, one thing that was not part of the administration's rules was a blanket ban, just basically saying that transgender women can't be on, it was a blanket ban against states that have laws like Texas that don't allow transgender women to compete against women at the collegiate level, and then the same thing with girls in the secondary schools.
Right.
That wasn't part of it. I guess from what I read, it may be still under consideration. So given that it's just protections for LGBTQ students, what's wrong with that?
Well, look, there's already statutes in place in Texas to protect everybody. Bullying, for example, is not allowed. It's not allowed in K through 12. It's not allowed in our colleges. We actually have statutes to protecting this. But look, everyone knows what this is. This is an attempt to get more liberal extremist beliefs on others, and we're not going to tolerate it. Again, the Governor Abbott has instructed the Texas Education Agency to ignore this farce. There is specific items in there to treat men as women, and we're not going to tolerate it in Texas.
And then my last question to you is a bill that you authored that became law, won a victory in the courts. That bill was challenged based on the fact that the law has age verification requirements for porn websites. Talk to me a little bit about this.
Yeah, big victory to protect kids from being sexualized. I mean, I think it's clear to everybody children are being sexualized or being targeted. So yeah, what this was is a piece of legislation I passed. Governor signed it into law, and we've been challenged by some of these more liberal groups, by the pornographic websites, to try to fight the requirement. And all it does, it just requires pornographic websites to perform age verification before somebody does a transaction on their website. That's done across the internet, across the globe today. When you're purchasing alcohol or similar type products where there's some age restrictions, there's age verification. So it's a very common sense piece of legislation. They challenged us in courts, and we had our victory 2 days ago, where the United States Supreme Court upheld the bill. So we're doing this and other things to make sure that kids aren't sexualized in the state of Texas. So again, a real big win for children in Texas.
State Representative Matt Shaheen of Plano, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and your insight.
You bet. Great being with you, Jack.